Hello and welcome to episode 5.16, the April 22nd, 2026 Road Trip 3 edition of Notes from the Aisle Seat, the podcast that covers the arts in northern Chautauqua County, sponsored by the 1891 Fredonia Opera House. My name is Tom Laughlin, and I'm your host as we bring you news and information about arts events at the Opera House and around the region, including interviews with artists and creators across the county. You're listening to the third of a 3-episode condensed series I'm calling the Road Trip series, since I am out traveling and can't produce the podcast in my usual time frame. The Department of Theater and Dance at SUNY Fredonia will present the Noel Coward classic Blithe Spirit, opening Friday, April 24th and running for 2 weekends. I had the honor of speaking with 3 of the student actors from this show who offered their insights on this comedy of manners. I can't tell you how many times it's when I talk to students at the Department of Theater and Dance these days, I'm always learning something new from them, how they're going, what training is like, and stuff like that. And right now, I've got 3 of them here with me, and they're consist of the 3 principals of the upcoming play that the Department of Theater and Dance is doing, Noel Coward's Blithe Spirit, which probably needs no introduction to most of my audiences, but I'm sure needed some introduction to these young people. So let me introduce them first. With me is Audrey Erwin. She's going to be playing the role of Elvira. Hello, Audrey.
Hello.
I have with me also Julia Ferarra. She is going to play the part of Ruth.
Hi.
And also finally with me, Phineas Goodman, who is playing the role of Charles, the man in the middle. Hello, Phineas.
Hello.
All right, so I'm really anxious. This question was like the first one I could possibly think of. This play is 85 years old. It has a particular style to it. It's called A Comedy of Manners. Noel Coward was very famous for these kinds of things. He's one of the most well-recognized and well-known names in British theater of the 20th century. And I am curious to get your take when you knew this play was announced and it was going to be done, and you all rushed to the library to find a copy of it. What you thought of it. So how about we start with you, Audrey? Can you give us a little idea of what your reaction was to the play?
Well, when I first read it, I was at my job. I work at a boutique over the summer and there's not many customers. So I was able to read it in the little shed that I work at. And I was just immediately entranced by Elvira, my character. And I thought she was so fun. But I did notice it has aged quite badly, some of the things in the play. Luckily, we've scratched those out of the script.
Okay.
Some things that we may not agree with or not want to, mention in the play. So that I really appreciate. And honestly, it doesn't disrupt it at all. I reread the edits that Mr. Paul had made, and I didn't even notice a difference. And it just makes it a lot better for today's view on plays and things like that. So
yeah, it kind of keeps up with the times then, I would assume that that's the case. Contemporary references and things like that. You're playing the ghost character. Let me make sure that everybody understands that Elvira is the ghost in this play, where the ghost of Charles's former wife, ex-wife, Elvira, comes and is brought to the house, and she begins to haunt them, and Ruth has no idea what's going on. So let's talk to Julie, who's playing the part of Charles's current wife, Ruth. What was your reaction, Julie? I'm interested.
It's actually funny, Audrey, that you mentioned kind of being taken with Elvira when you first started, because when I was reading it, I also read it over the summer at my job. I was a receptionist. Similarly, not a lot going on at reception. And I remember noticing, number one, that I really enjoyed Ruth's character, and I kind of identified with like her personality, I guess, in a way that you don't always, you just don't always have that when you're reading a play, number one. And number two, I remember being really taken with like, I didn't know anything about it until they announced the show. And like, I Googled it and I saw that it said it was a comedy, but I was laughing. Like I was sitting at reception. I was surprised. I kept finding myself like chuckling a little bit reading some of the lines. And like Audrey said, we luckily Mr. Paul combed through it, so that we were not perpetuating any kind of, you know, things we don't want to perpetuate. But the humor is still there, and like then reading it then versus going to the read through, like it's actually it's incredible. When you said 85 years, it's so crazy to think about the fact that this play is that old because it's still so funny. Everything, all of the jokes are reading and landing, and it's 2026. It's like that's just so it's so exciting.
It's interesting to listen to you talk about it that way. And how about you, Phineas? What was your reaction?
Right away, I was really captured by the wit and the specificity that it begs. I feel like especially with it being a British comedy as well, there's a very lyrical nature to the way you speak, just in the dialect and in the way that Noel Coward writes. It's even got this lilt to it, and it kind of begs almost that musical theater-esque specificity and blocking sometimes, where it's like, this bit is really funny, but only if this is the proximity, or like if this is what you do in that moment. And so it just had me really excited to get into the room and put some of these moments on their feet.
Now, I know you've been working with the script. You're really early in rehearsal at the time that we're recording this particular interview. And I know that you've been looking at the language and struggling with, I won't say struggling, but it's probably language and timing that realistic drama doesn't really present to you. And Phineas, as you mentioned, that it has a lyric quality of that. Well, I'll start with you again, Phineas, since you brought it up. What have you been doing to get yourself into the rhythm of that? Because it really does take a lot of precision, precise breaths, precise diction, precise emphasis in specific words.
That is, yeah, I think it boils down to what you said. Primarily, it's diction work in the warm-ups, because there's, you can get the articulators moving and you can get your mouth making the right sounds, but then you also have to do that with the dialect on top of it, because the way you warm up fricatives or plosives, they are delivered differently and they sit differently when you're in the British dialect. So it's a lot of it is warming up the accent and with some key phrases that help you drop into it, and also just warming up the mouth and then kind of working your way up and down the register. For me, it really rests a lot in the voice, because especially with the dialect, uh Julia, who plays Ruth, is actually our dialect coach for the production. So she did a lot of research on this, and
Oh.
she's got a really great grasp on it all. But she was explaining to us that a lot of inflection uh, is more to do with pitch than it is with volume, like it is with American English. So really going up and down to really articulate things and make sure you're going up here sometimes. Like it's just playing with different areas of the voice.
Um, it's everything about this play, because it's a comedy of manners. It's also a period piece, and so the movement is important. It's different movement than the 21st century. The use of props, and I don't know what all kinds of props you might possibly be using in terms of the play, but the style of the way these characters, the way the costumes have them moving, the way you have to appear physically in terms of it. Has that been any challenge yet? Or are you still waiting for that? I don't even know if you have rehearsal costumes yet. What's that been like, Audrey?
So as Elvira, I take into account that she is, from the text, physically triumphant. And so I really try to kind of tap into the sensuality of Elvira. And I like to come to rehearsal polished, and I like to have my makeup done, even though, having makeup doesn't make you pretty, but I like to have that on and make me feel like I am ready to step into this character, because she's just like known to be beautiful.
She's put together. She's put together.
That makes me feel more beautiful if I'm able to make myself feel beautiful, And then also she's a ghost. So she has this sort of ethereal movement to her. Yeah, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, I don't do a lot of like rigid movements.
Yeah.
I keep them pretty fluid. If we're comparing it to Ruth, because Ruth sometimes does do like quick stops. I kind of I guess, yeah, I'm pretty fluid when I'm moving around. But we don't use rehearsal costumes. I could bring in my own skirt, but I don't really have a good skirt to wear, but I do wear my character shoes to help me. but definitely I'm really excited to get the costumes on and feel that, because we've seen pictures of what our costumes are going to look like, and it's just beautiful, super flowy. And I think that will also help me with my physicality of being more ghostly.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think we have Charles and Ruth, and I think it's important to point out here that Charles and Ruth are both part of a certain class of British society. They're upper class, and so they have a certain way of dressing, they're presenting themselves, and so on and so forth. And Ruth, of course, is also a very stylish woman. But Julia, how do you think you're going to separate Ruth's stylishness as someone who is actually physically present as opposed to the ghost? And make the two women seem very contrasting, because I think that's important to the play, that the two women somehow have a contrast in terms of just looking at Charles's taste in women, let's say.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because obviously he's like is or was married to both of them. And so they're both like his type, if you want to call it that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't think we were doing it like intentionally. Audrey and I never had a conversation to like and you do this and I'll do that, but it just kind of emerges naturally. Like Audrey said, there is a very sensual nature to Elvira, and Ruth to me is like more intellectual, where it's like the biting wit and like everything kind of lives up in her head more. Um, so that's definitely been probably the biggest thing I think that differentiates us.
Yeah, I think it's a good choice too. And how that will reflect in, how you move through the space, I think is going to be kind of interesting. Now, for you, Phineas, you're the man in the middle, as I said earlier. There's Elvira, your former wife, who's dead. She's hanging around. There's Ruth, your current wife, who's hanging around, and they're both slightly, maybe a little bit different in terms of type. How are you playing the character of Charles, who's a successful novelist and all that? And how, what he may have seen in Elvira, he doesn't want in Ruth, or is there anything about the way that you see his choice of these two women as his wives that is contrasting?
Really, it does kind of boil down to the point that Julia and Audrey were both making, in that Ruth is a little bit more of on the wittier side.
Hmm.
There was a lot that Charles had in common with Elvira, and they had a really fun marriage. Like, he did truly love her, but the connection between him and Ruth is more that he sees more of himself in her, someone he can kind of intellectually spar with a little bit more.
In a sense, do you think that comes out in the dialogue? I mean, will audiences be able to hear that in the dialogue of the play?
Yes, yeah, a lot of that is mostly written in the dialogue, where, of course, the circumstances of my interactions with Elvira being different, in that I'm speaking to my dead wife versus my living wife. Like, the stakes are a little bit different, but throughout the entirety of the first scene, I'm coming down, preparing the house for company, and me and Ruth are going back and forth, trading quippy blows, and it's like, oh yes. And it's a very fun dynamic. Both of them are always on the tips of their brain,
Hmm.
and he's more shell shocked by Elvira's appearance, being that she is his dead wife returned. But even then, it's more the interactions we've gotten through so far, and what we've been able to block, and what we've worked on so far really does kind of play into the allure. Even being remarried, even though she is dead, there is a little bit of that allure still there from his first marriage.
No, I hate to give away the play. It's a well-known play, so I don't want to go a little bit any further with everybody's waving me. I'll say, oh,
They
that's
had they
fine.
had 85 years.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Well, what happens, of course, is that, towards the end of the play, Elvira tries to set up a situation where Charles is going to have an auto accident, but instead Ruth takes the car. She's the one who has the auto accident. She's the one who gets killed. And the next thing you know, Ruth and Elvira are both ghosts haunting poor Charles. How do you two ladies, maybe we'll start with Julia this time. How do you two ladies see that moment in the play where you meet each other? You size each other up, and things begin to happen.
And unfortunately, we haven't even got there yet in blocking.
Oh, too early.
However, we're a little too early. But I mean, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun because in one of the scenes like leading up to that moment, you start to hear like Elvira saying things like, it's too bad, like she really is a woman of sterling character. Like they start to kind of drop hints about the other woman, like not being that bad. And from the beginning of the play, Ruth, and I think she's covering up a little bit for her jealousy, but Ruth does say towards the beginning of the show, like, I've never really had a problem with the fact that you had this other wife, and I must have liked her as a person if I had the chance to have met her, because you liked her, and she sounds lovely from what you talked about. Like, they kind of allude to that kind of friendship feeling, almost like before Ruth actually dies in the car crash. So when they get together, it's like now they have a real common enemy. Because I think before that point in the play, they're kind of at odds with obviously they're at odds with each other because they're fighting over Charles, but now they're both together and they both kind of realize, well, we've both outlived him, and you know what? He wasn't even that nice the whole time. So there's that. There's that for them to bond over.
And Audrey, your take?
Yeah. Definitely studying Elvira. She's not, if you know the term, a girl's girl. She's not a girl's girl to me throughout most of the play, and that's something that I really hate about her. But I'm glad that she does kind of turn into a girl's girl at the end with Ruth, and they kind of are able to share like a common enemy being Charles. But really, I think what she hates most about Ruth is that she has Charles. It's not that she doesn't hate Ruth. She just wants Charles. And then I think towards the end of the play, she realizes that Charles is not the man that she married when she first married him. And she's like, you know what? I don't think I like him anymore. And he was mean to me, and he was mean to you too, Ruth. So F him, so I really do like that. Not saying a man hater, but like, you know what I mean? It's fun, and it's kind of getting back at Charles, and it's like womanhood. And I think that's a beautiful part of the end of the play, is that the girls get together.
Julia, Phineas, Audrey, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Just listening to the three of you talk about the show, and listening to you talk about how you're preparing for the roles, makes me, and I hope the listening audience, very excited to come see it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Okay. Blithe Spirit will run on the Marvel stage for 2 weekends, Friday and Saturday, April 24th and 25th, and May 1st and 2nd at 7:30 p.m., and Sunday, April 26th and May 3rd at 2 p.m. For tickets, call the campus box office at 716-673-3501 or online at www.fredonia.edu/tickets. My next interview is with actor and comedian Steve Hytner, who played the role of Kenny Banya, Jerry Seinfeld's comedic nemesis for 7 episodes on The Seinfeld Show. He'll be at the Opera House along with Mark Price, who played Skippy on Family Ties, for an evening of comedy called Where Are They Wow? Here's my chat with Steve, and it's gold. Gold. I'm very excited to be talking to my next guest. He is Steve Hytner, and many of you will know him as Kenny from the long-running television series Seinfeld, Kenny Banya, and he'll be coming to the 1891 Fredonia Opera House along with his buddy Mark Price, who played Skippy on Family Ties, and they'll be here, both of them, Friday, May 1st at 7:30 p.m. To do a little bit of stand-up comedy and meet you all. So, Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the Opera House.
Oh yeah, it should be a good time between you and Mark. I think it's going to be hysterical. I had a chance to talk to Mark earlier, and now it's your turn to sort of run up the laughs here for us.
All right. I don't know if I'm as charming as Mark, but let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. All right. Now, of course, everybody, the minute I say Kenny Banya and Seinfeld, all of those things, you're well known for that. So let's kind of start there and see where it rolls, because I'm very interested in how you got that role. Actually, what was the circumstances for getting that part?
Well, the thing is, I've told this story before, but I mean, the directness of your question, I have to be very direct in answering it. I had auditioned for several roles on Seinfeld previously, so they were interested in me. But I didn't get those other roles. And then I had said that previously, and that blew up with the Seinfeld fans. They were like, "What roles did Banya audition for and not get?"
Uh-huh.
And then I didn't know the answer to that. I remember one was when Kramer had the scent of the beach, and he wanted to bring it to a perfume cologne company, and
Yes.
and it was the guy who ran that company. But the other roles I auditioned for, I didn't remember, and it blew up so much. I mean, it went viral on what roles it were that even if I knew at this point, I wouldn't answer it. So, but yeah, they were interested in me at the time. But at the time, I was also doing tons of acting and guest roles on shows. But Seinfeld, by the time I got involved, was already the number one show in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, I was like, why am I not landing this one? And then Banya happened.
Uh-huh. I gotta say, I think I've seen all 7 episodes where you appear as Banya, and that character is just so clear cut, so well drawn, so specific. There are things you did with that character that, as I watched it, I went, man, that's really, some good acting. So where did, for
Thank you,
example,
first of all.
you're welcome. So, where did you get the character's voice? I want to start with that because that voice is like, whew.
Well, the voice came from the idea of when I was auditioning, you can hear other people auditioning, right? You're not trying to. It's just a thin wall.
Mhm.
Everybody was doing Banya as this angry guy that, hey, I gave you that suit. You owe me a meal.
Right, right.
And I was like, you know what? As I was hearing it, I said, I don't know how long. Angry can't be funny that long. Angry can be funny for a little bit, but it can't be funny long. So really, on a dime, I decided to make Banya a puppy dog, and that he adored Jerry. And you go, well, yeah, that was the character. Well, no, that wasn't the character. I
Huh.
kind of did that on a dime because of hearing all these guys do this negative thing. So to get to your point, in my wanting to make it more upbeat, all of a sudden the voice went up with this kind of, hey, Jerry.
Yes, right.
Yeah. So because what I was doing was kind of the last second upbeat thing, and the voice just kind of went there. So then I was just, then that was the Banya voice. And the audience seemed to like the first words I ever said on the show were me coming in the diner going, hey, Jerry. And the audience just exploded. So that was the voice.
It was a terrific choice, I think. And along with the voice, of course, and I don't know whether this was written in the script or whether you came up with this, I have no idea. But, the character always sort of has taglines and he repeats like the last few words of his sentence,
Yes.
Yeah, I've been working out. I'm huge, Jerry, huge,
Yeah. So that was them. That was written. But when we did it initially, it worked just tremendously well. But then we started keeping the character doing that, and it started to feel like done, or we've covered that. So we went away from it for a lot of the episodes in the middle of my run.
Hmm.
And then which is probably Banya's most known catchphrase of "That's gold, Jerry, gold."
Right.
We had gotten away from it there, and then when we had it when we did the script, all it said was, I turn and I say, "That's gold, Jerry," and I said, "Well, now we should bring back what we went away from."
Right.
And to bring back that cadence of "That's gold, Jerry, gold." And so we brought it back at the end. But in the middle, for a little bit, it started to feel stale. It works up front in those first episodes.
Right.
And then we got away from it and we brought it back with "Gold, Jerry, gold."
So one of the other things I noticed in you creating that character of Kenny Banya was your facial expressions, and there was one I remember particularly where you and Jerry are having that first dinner at Mendy's, and you talk about how you've been working out and so on and so forth, and you suggest to Jerry that he should work out too, and Jerry says, "Why?" And all of a sudden your face just looks like a deer in the headlights, and it just goes, what? Like no one's ever asked me that question before. Where did you get the facial expressions from? I mean, those are terrific as well.
I kind of that was pretty deliberate, because one of the times we were rehearsing, or maybe even in the table read, the question of why does somebody work out just kind of struck me.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, I just had the thought of, what if he has never considered it? What if he has never considered why he does this? And then the kind of soft crumble of the face there. But what that really makes me think of is, sometimes quite unfairly, people like to go, well, Jerry was the worst actor. Jerry wasn't even a good actor. If you think about that same scene, if you want to talk about a facial expression, when I say, yeah, I'm just going to get the soup. I had the hot dog earlier.
Right.
And if you look at Jerry, and it's hard to do right now because we're not on camera, but he tilts his head as if to consider.
Mhm.
And that's great acting because it lets the audience catch up and be up to speed for him to go, no, Banya, no. The soup counts.
Yeah.
Right? And it's that tilt of the head that allows that to happen. So sometimes if I see that scene, that's what catches me, not the words. I look at what Jerry and I are doing with our faces and our heads of guiding the audience or sort of letting the audience catch up to where we are. And that can be, in my opinion, especially comedically, very good acting. And I think Jerry does that in that scene.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it really is terrific. I thought the whole sequence, the whole history of the Banya character was just fantastic. It really was. You did a
Yeah,
great job with that
you've
character.
said it correctly. Thank you. You've said it correctly about 7 times, and one time you did, and one time you said Banya, which I'll bring up because when we would rehearse it at the beginning, it's a weird spelling of a name, Bania.
Yeah.
And so sometimes Jason or Jerry would pronounce it Banya, like
Mhm.
you did that once. But Larry would be out there while we were rehearsing, and every time he'd go, Banya, Banya. So he had somebody in mind.
Yeah.
That was not going to be Banya. It was going to be Banya.
It was going to be Vanya. Yeah, that's terrific. Listen, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You and I are both Long Island boys. I grew up in
Ah,
Massapequa. You grew up in Valley Stream, I believe. And I want to ask you this question because this is a piece of information that I found fascinating being a Long Island boy. And Jerry grew up in Massapequa
yep.
too. Yeah. So, we got all that in common. You went to Valley Stream Central High School, and out of that high school came a whole number of quite interesting actors. I mean, we're talking about Steve Buscemi, Patricia Charbonneau, Fred Armisen, Martin Covey from The Karate Kid, and Les Moonves, who was the CEO of CBS for many, many years. What was in the water at Valley Stream at that time? I want to know.
It was crazy because I thought about that myself. And Les Moonves, his brother Jonathan Moonves, who's a big entertainment lawyer, he and I were like best friends in the 4th and 5th grade. And they had something that I had never heard of. They had something called a maid. And I was like, wow, what the heck is that? We would go to his house and she would make us sandwiches. I'm like, this is unbelievable.
That's really funny because I never thought growing up of Valley Stream as a place where you would find somebody who had a house that had a maid in it. Tell you
Yeah,
the truth.
I don't think she was full time. I think she came a couple of times a week.
Yeah.
But when she was there, she'd make us sandwiches after school, and I thought, oh, this is top notch.
Yeah.
We also had an excellent talent department, a drama department led by a man named Lynn Lappin at the time, and he
Uh-huh.
was. I mean, he had us doing plays like Marat Sade, which I'm sure many people have never heard of, and we're doing that in high school.
Mm.
So we were very well led by Lynn Lappin.
Your career then took a kind of an arc. You were part of a very famous, well known to some people, the Lexington Conservatory Theater, which eventually became Capitol Rep in Albany.
Correct.
What about those days? You recall anything about those days?
Yeah, those were some of the most important days of my career. Patricia Charbonneau had gotten connected with Lexington Conservatory Theater, which was this unbelievably cool, hip summer stock company where all the money was dumped back in and it was run like a commune and everybody had jobs to do. And and then you would do the plays. And I got involved very late in Lexington Conservatory Theater, and I was just an intern. So I was just, working backstage and doing everything I could. And then they did an intern show at the end of the year. This is probably 79 or 80. And I did a play, The Wager, we did. I think it was Mark Medoff's The Wager. And Deborah Headwall, who was one of the great actresses in that company, handed me a piece of paper and she said, "Stephen, you are very interesting to watch. I want you to go study with this person." And that was someone named Freddie Karaman, who was a disciple of the Sanford Meisner technique. And I went into the city, and that just set me off on my path.
Your career now, you've turned to stand up. Mostly you do a lot of stand up, as well as you're still, going around Hollywood getting, feature roles in television shows and movies. And I mean, you've done a little bit of everything. What is your stand up like these days, and how does it help to support the rest of what you do?
I'm really enjoying stand up right now. I take great pride in my stand up, and I also take pride in monetizing two different artistic endeavors. I've always been a little bit, I should be more artistic about, I enjoy my art as an actor and I enjoy my art as a stand-up. And those are true, but I also take great pride in monetizing them and being able to make my living off of them. And if that sounds a little technical, I don't mean it that way. I mean, you have to have a certain proficiency for people to allow you to pay your mortgage in that way.
Right.
Now, as for stand-up now, at this point in my career, acting is the most collaborative art form there is. You're dealing with 100 other people. You're dealing with other actors, producers, hair, makeup, wardrobe, director, sets. You're dealing with 100 people every day. Stand-up is the least collaborative art form. It's basically me and you. And at this point in my life, I'm enjoying the least collaborative art form.
Was that something you ever thought you would do, or is it something that you realized from, having done sitcoms and television work that you might have a flair for?
No, actually, when I moved into Manhattan and I was having trouble getting work as an actor very young, all of a sudden there was this boom in stand-up in like the early 80s. And there were stages everywhere. Comedy had exploded. And my friends were like, "Hey, you never shut up. Why don't you try that?" And I was like, "All right, I will." And it turns out I was pretty decent at it. And I started moving up in the stand-up ranks. But in my heart, this is like I'm 22 years old at this point. And my whole act was like, when I was 22, my whole act was, "Why won't she touch me?" That was my life experience. When I went back to stand up in my 50s, like I had more to talk about. She still won't touch me, but I have more to talk about. So I really wanted to act, and that's when I moved to LA. I said, I'm giving acting one more hard push. I'm not going to do stand up, even though I was starting to get gigs. And once I moved to LA, acting just started happening for me. But so I had done a bunch of stand up in the 80s, to where a lot of the comedians back then, they think I started as a comedian. But I really started as an actor, studying very seriously. I studied, with Sanford, with Uta Hagen, and these are legends. I didn't realize they were legends even in their own time, but they're certainly been proven to be legends now. But stand-up I just love it. I love the connection with the audience. I love the freedom to do what I want to do, talk about what I want to talk about. And, now with Mark working together, one of the things I love about it is that there are no similarities in our act. We both do very different things. And that's nice. If you're going to come for an evening, you don't want two guys roughly doing the same thing.
I'm going to let you go because, pretty much my time is up, and I've just enjoyed talking with you. I mean, I could talk with you for hours and ask you a whole bunch of questions, but, congratulations on your career. It's really been quite a great career. Kenny Bania was one of the most interesting characters ever appear on Seinfeld, and I hope you're remembered for that, because, sometimes actors don't like to get stuck with a role, but that's one I think is worth, saying this guy really created something special in those 7 episodes. And that's not easy to do. That's difficult to do. I understand that. So
I'm proud of the work I did on that. And no, I take it as it comes. I don't really believe in that kind of, oh, I don't want to be labeled that way. It's going to happen. If I walk out my front door, somebody's just going to scream, that's gold, Jerry, and there's nothing I can do about it.
all right. Steve Hytner, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And we're looking forward to seeing you on May 1st.
All the best, Tom. Thanks.
Where Are They Wow? An evening of comedy with Mark Price and Steve Hytner will be at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House on Friday, May 1st at 7:30 p.m. You'll want to snap up tickets for this show quickly by calling the box office at 716-679-1891 or online at www.fredopera.org/tickets. Tickets are $30 general admission. You can listen again to the interview I did with Mark Price back on February 11th in episode 5.11 of this podcast. Just go to ilseat.podbean.com to hear that interview. There is no arts calendar for these road trip episodes, but you can find more information from the various arts venues in the county by clicking the links listed at the bottom of the show notes. If you have an arts event you'd like mentioned on the podcast, just send us an email at operahouse@fredopera.org. Please give us a month's notice in advance of your event if possible to ensure a timely listing. Also, you still have one more day to pre-register online for the upcoming 1891 Run for the Opera House. Pre-registration closes on Friday, April 23rd at 7 a.m., so if you're listening to this podcast on the day it's released, you have a few more hours to register at the $25 level. Registration on the day of the race is $30 for adults, $15 for students. Registered runners can pick up their packets at the Opera House on Saturday, April 25th from 7 a.m. to noon, and the run walk will begin on Sunday, April 26th at 9 a.m. Check out the 1891 Run webpage at our website, www.fredopera.org, for all the details. A link is provided in the show notes below for your convenience. Our final interview features Mr. Tim Kennedy, founder and artistic director emeritus of Buffalo Opera Unlimited, who offers his expertise on the upcoming Live at the Met performance of Tchaikovsky's opera Eugene, Onegin on Saturday, May 2nd at 1 p.m. Here's my conversation with Tim. The Live at the Met series continues at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House on Saturday, May 2nd, 2026 at 1 p.m. with a live performance of a composer whom I think most of you have heard of, maybe Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky and his opera Eugene, Onegin. And here to talk with me about that is my good friend and colleague and co-collaborator in art, Mr. Tim Kennedy. Tim is the founder and artistic director emeritus of Buffalo Opera Unlimited. Welcome, Tim.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
Good to have you. Good to have you. So let's talk a little bit, obviously, about Eugene Onegin. I know that even though Tchaikovsky is a composer that just about almost everyone has heard of, Swan Lake, Nutcracker Suite, so many things, he's not well known as an opera composer. So can we talk a little bit about where this opera came from and how Tchaikovsky came to compose it?
Yeah, well, actually, he was having dinner with a friend, a singer, and she brought it up. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do Eugene Onegin? And he never thought about it, but after some research, he just fell in love with it, and he decided to do it. He started it. It professionally debuted. Its premiere was in Moscow in 1881. And what can I say? The rest is history. But and of course he's done more than, I think he did 11 operas. Pique Dame was one of them, but Eugene Onegin, of course, is his most famous one. Yeah.
I think it's important to, kind of talk a little bit about, obviously, the story. It's based on a novella, I believe, by Alexander Pushkin. And for those not familiar with Russian literature, Pushkin is like the Shakespeare of Russian literature. He was adored. He was held in the highest regard by Russia during his lifetime. And so when Tchaikovsky picked up this Pushkin novella, Eugene Onegin, he was pretty enthralled with it. Can you give us a little bit about the plot?
The first scene starts in the garden of the home of Olga, and Tatiana. Tatiana, of course, is the main character. Olga is her sister, and they're singing a duet in this garden of their mother's house. And the mother's reminiscing about her courtship and what it's all about. Tatiana, of course, who is uh, next in line as far as the most important characters in Eugene Onegin, is very shy. She likes to read books. She doesn't have much to do with anything, and of course, the parents want her to be more outgoing. So she gets Linsky, who is the partner of Olga. Olga is Tatiana's sister. Linsky and Olga are very much in love, and they come to visit. But Linsky is bringing a friend with him, and his name is Eugene Onegin. And Eugene Onegin is an aristocrat, one of these 19th century aristocrats, very rich, very smug, almost a little cynical, and they come to visit Olga and Tatiana falls helplessly in love with Eugene Onegin in this first act.
I think what comes next is a famous letter writing scene by Tatiana. Apparently,
Oh
it's
my
a
God.
it's a
Yeah,
great piece of music, and
yeah.
she goes wild
Oh,
there.
oh yeah. Great, great. Not only that, it's one of the best uh, uh, scenes in all of opera. I mean, just a masterpiece. She falls madly in love and she decides to write, and they call it the letter scene. Now, as you well know, arias, you can sing an operatic aria in 3 minutes. And you know that ABA form, you get the structure of the music, and then the B form, it's different, and then it comes back to A. Not in this. This is what makes this piece so wonderful. It's called the letter scene. Tatiana. It's 12 minutes.
Wow.
Can you believe the aria is 12 minutes, and it's not that ABA form. It's through composed. So that's one of the things that makes it great. And the next scene, Act 1-3. um, Onegin shows up, and he is just very cold, very distant. And he says to her, "Well, I got your letter, but look, I'm really not into all of this uh, having a relationship with you. I really am not that kind of person. Maybe, I can be like a brother to you, but it's not going to go anywhere." And so it's basically, your story of unrequited love at this point.
She's crushed.
Um, yes, very much so. In Act 2, they have one of these balls that where dancing and people are there, with the
And it's an opportunity for Tchaikovsky to sort of let himself go, because I think the musical scenes are, one is a waltz, everybody gets to do a waltz, and then it turns into sort of a more of a Russian ethnic dance, a mazurka, where people get a little,
yeah,
yeah, right. And
yeah,
I think that everybody else is kind of watching. Eugene Onegin is watching, and so on and so forth.
yeah. Oh yeah, and he gets a little beside himself, and he asked to dance with Olga, who is Linsky's um, uh,
Fiance, yeah, right.
partner. Yeah, and he gets extremely jealous. They have this horrible fight, and it ends up with Linsky, and this is his good friend, challenging him to a duel. Scene 2, Act 2, is they meet early in the morning, as these duels go during this time. And here in Act 2, Scene 2, Onegin ends up killing Linsky. But before that, there's something musical that I've got to talk about. There's this incredible tenor aria called Kuda Kuda. And uh, any tenor who's a real opera lover who loves the repertoire will tell you that this is one of the great operas. Now, of course, the most difficult thing is that you have to learn it in Russian. As you well know, trained singers, they have to sing German, French, and Italian. But, sometimes, and if they're going to do this role, or it can be something that a teacher just wants them to have. It's this wonderful aria from Act Two, Scene Two of Linsky's, and wonderful singers have done it before. Domingo is known for doing a wonderful rendition of it. I like Nikolai Gedda, who does a work, and it has a wide range. It demands vocal control, long soaring legato lines, and it's frequent changes. You can have all kinds of dynamics in just 8 bars. You can have different dynamics, 5 changes. So it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful aria, and a lot of tenors who go outside the normal range will learn this in Russian. That's how wonderful it is. In Act Three, and he's returned, and he finds out that he's looking for Tatiana. Oh, and he's at this ball. This is Act 3-1, and he sees this beautiful woman, and he asks this Prince Grayman. There's another wonderful basso aria
Hmm.
that the prince sings also. And he asks the prince, he said, "Who's that absolutely striking woman over there?" And he says, "Oh, that's my wife. Her name is Tatiana." So there he realizes um, that Tatiana now is married, and he's just shocked about this. And here's this absolutely striking. And now she is in the upper class. She now is an aristocrat. And this really shocks him. And she notices him, and she basically now she ignores him. It
Ah,
looks like the reverse kind of situation. And he goes to her and pleads with her to please leave with him, leave this prince, and be with him. And she still is, believe it or not, in love with him. But she says, "I cannot leave my husband. I will not." And she just rushes away and leaves him.
wow.
And there he is, distraught. Yeah.
And that's where the opera
Opera
ends.
ends
Wow.
that way. That's where the opera ends. Yeah.
Interesting. Very, very interesting story. Um,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about the music, though. Like I said, most of us are familiar with Tchaikovsky's concertos and yeah, those kinds of things. What do you find striking about the music that's really unique to Tchaikovsky in this opera?
Well, I mean, I think that I those 3 arias that I brought out, and also there is if you want to see, I just watched Renee Fleming and Dmitry Hovostorsky. He died of brain cancer.
Mm.
Maybe 6 years ago. I don't know. And he's certainly one of the great Russian baritones of all time. And I just watched it. Yeah, and I think the scene, I don't know, it might be 6 minutes. I saw it on YouTube.
Hmm.
And Renee Fleming and Dmitry Hovostorsky, they do it. And I can tell you, it is maddening. This man is pleading with her the entire time. He's on his knees, begging her to come back to him. Just wonderful staging and wonderful singing. And I would recommend that last. It's the final scene, and like
Hmm.
I said, it's about 6 minutes, but it's moving, and the music is absolutely moving. And that tenor aria that Linsky does just before he's killed is one of the most moving pieces in the opera.
I do want to ask you one question before we leave in terms of the pairing of the soprano and the baritone. Is that unusual in opera where the two lead characters, one is a soprano and one is a baritone? You usually hear sopranos and tenors next to each other when you have sort of a kind of a love story, but this is a soprano and a baritone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And of course, and through all of the repertoire, you have that. Well, in Marriage of Figaro, you've got a baritone and a soprano, and I'm sure there are lots of others. But you know what they say: the tenor always gets the girl. That's always what they say, and the baritone is the evil guy. He's always the villain, and the bass is always the father.
Hmm. Hmm.
He gets the great what we call beard roles,
Right.
and that's what normally happens.
In this case, he's not a villain, but he is sort of a bad guy in a sense because he tells Tatiana in the beginning, "No, I can't. I don't want anything to do with you." He gives
That's
out
right.
that bored aristocratic kind of thing. And it's not exactly a villain, but by the same token, it's not exactly a character you attach yourself to at the very beginning. And then at the end, he
Yeah.
just falls apart.
Oh, he gets his comeuppance, as they say. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the story of unrequited love. Like so many movies and operas are all about. As a matter of fact, some people might compare it to like a Russian Traviata
Hmm.
or a Russian. I've read that somewhere, or a Russian Manon, and it's that kind of feeling sometimes when you hear about the storyline and where it ends and where it begins. So, but it's a great masterpiece.
Well, I think the
Oh,
audiences are really going to like this one because it's a little it's dramatic, it's unrequited love. Tchaikovsky is a romantic composer from the Romantic era, so the music is very lush and melodic, and all of those kinds of things. So it should be a great time at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House to listen to Eugene Onegin by Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky. Tim, thanks for coming on. I appreciate the time that you
okay.
take and all the work that you do to get all of the information that you get. And, you know, keep on plugging up there, okay?
Okay. All right. All right. I know you'll keep me busy.
I
Okay.
will. I'm going to try, Tim.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
The Live at the Met presentation of Eugene Onegin by Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky will be on Saturday, May 2nd at 1 p.m. Tickets can be obtained at the box office 716-679-1891 or online at www.fredopera.org/tickets and are $20 for adults, $18 for members, and $10 for students. You can get that membership price for this and many other Fredonia Opera House events by becoming a member. Just click the membership link at the bottom of the show notes for this podcast for more information. And that's it for this Road Trip 3 edition of Notes from the Aisle Seat. My thanks to Audrey Erwin, Julia Ferarra, Phineas Goodman, Steve Hytner, and Tim Kennedy for being my guests. Our next full episode of Notes from the Aisle Seat will be available on Wednesday, May 6th, 2026. It'll be great to be back home. I'm Tom Laughlin, and until then, be safe out there and be kind to one another.